Charles. I'm an assistant project manager on the group health account. I am in the commute solutions department, so it is my job to encourage alternative commuting to group health work sites. That includes cycling, biking, walking, taking the bus, carpooling, vanpooling. So my adventure starts in San Francisco. The year was 2006. I had recently graduated from college with a degree in music. I wasn't really using my degree. I had more or less decided that I wasn't going to become a professional musician, and I was working a dead-end job. I was a junk hauler. Now, it may not sound like a lot of fun to haul somebody else's junk all over San Francisco, but it was actually a pretty great job. I got exercise, I got to learn the city, and I got to keep some pretty cool junk. But it wasn't a career, and I needed a change. I needed some inspiration. I needed to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. So I decided to take that opportunity to do something that I had always wanted to do, which was to bike across the country. I signed up with a local nonprofit, Global Exchange, with the goal of biking from Seattle, Washington to the other Washington, D.C. The purpose of the trip was to not just make it across the country, but to participate in community service projects along the way. And for me personally, I hope to gain a different perspective and redirect my career and figure out what I was going to do when I got back. We started in Seattle. The very first day I learned that one of the things that I had been fearing or anticipating, mountain passes, were actually not that difficult. Mountain passes are graded for large semis, and they're not actually that steep. Once we made it over the Cascades, we got into eastern Washington. We spent a night in an organic farmer's barn. We spent another night at a local orchard, sitting above a hill above Lake Chelan. And eventually we made it across eastern Washington to Spokane. After Spokane was Idaho. We biked along the Coeur d'Alene bike trail through gorgeous scenery along a river, through some of the most pristine scenery that we'd seen the entire trip. It was a place called the Silver Valley, and after biking for an entire day we stayed with the local community. And what we found out was that gorgeous, pristine looking environment actually had been severely degraded by silver mining in the community decades ago. And one of the consequences of that mining was significant health problems in the community. There was nothing that we could do, there was no community service project that we could undertake that could alleviate the problems that that community was having. But it was an eye-opening experience, and an experience that I took with me the rest of the journey. After Idaho was Montana. We traveled through the cool little towns of Missoula and Helena. And one of the highlights was dipping down into Wyoming. We got a chance to visit one of Ted Turner's large ranches. Ted Turner is a renowned conservationist and one of the largest landowners in the country. And it was truly an amazing experience to see this vast swath of open land that he had preserved for the environment and for the people to enjoy. After Montana was North Dakota. Hands down, one of the longest, windiest states in the country. Some days I didn't think I was going to make it. But eventually we did. We made it to Minnesota, on through the rolling hills of Wisconsin, and down into Chicago. We shot into Chicago after 100 miles of riding, just in time for a White Sox game. A $9 pint of beer never tasted better. From Chicago we traveled east through Indiana and on to Ohio. In Cincinnati we stayed with a woman who ran a community center for the local youth. It was a low-income neighborhood. She had purchased this gigantic building in the 80s, and ever since she's donated her or dedicated her life to this community center and providing a resource and a center for local kids. We performed community service projects. We did some light construction and roofing for various buildings in the community, and it was a great experience. And what I really took away from that was the impact that one person had. This woman had been doing this for decades. She wasn't making a lot of money, but she had a huge impact on her community. After Ohio, we went to Pennsylvania. One of the highlights of the trip was following the Youghiogheny River Trail, and just off of that trail is Frank Lloyd Wright's iconic Falling Water. It was truly a highlight of the trip, and Pennsylvania Laurel Highlands is really gorgeous scenery and also one of the highlights of the trip. After Pennsylvania, it was just a hop, skip, and a jump to DC. We went through Maryland, Virginia, and we were there. The last night of the trip, we stayed with my parents' house in a suburb of DC. All 20 of us, haggard, skinny, tired, and especially hungry. My parents were very gracious. They hosted a feast for us, and it was an amazing time to spend with our newfound friends, reminiscing over our journey. You might expect that some of the lessons learned on this trip have to do with perseverance, moral fortitude, strength, stamina. But for me, one of the largest lessons that I took away was to do what you love and to do something for the greater good. About 3 months after the start of the journey, I finally made it back to San Francisco. I got out of the junk business and I got a job as a project manager for a company taking inventories of used furniture and computers and donating them to local nonprofits instead of just taking them to the dump. Several years later, and an MBA later, and here I am working for CBRE as an assistant project manager in commute solutions. One of the best parts of my job is I get to bike to work. So that's my adventure. I hope you took something away from that. I hope you enjoyed listening to me. And I look forward to hearing many more of your adventures in the near future. Thank you.